all the details from that judgment. A very good morning to you, Sipho. Firstly, just take us through the main elements of the judgment and the reactions.
Well, a very good morning to you once again, and our viewers at home. Indeed, a major blow for Brian Molefe here at the Pretoria North Gauteng High Court, being ordered to pay back up to 11 million rands. We understand that is already received from his disputed pension payout. The court ordering that he should pay this within 10 days. So there isn't a lot of time in terms of preparing and making sure that he pays back that payment. Of course, we know that he was supposed, according to Eskom, receive about 30 million rands, but obviously that decision has since been challenged here by the DA in solidarity, and it was found that that decision was unlawful and that Mr. Molefe was actually never entitled to any pensions from Eskom. The court also found that Mr. Molefe actually lied by suggesting that he had never resigned and simply took an early retirement. It says that that argument doesn't carry any weight, saying that when he left Eskom under the cloud of the Public Protector State of Capture report, that was his resignation, or form of resignation. That was his way of exit, saying that an agreement was reached that he would exit, and it means then that he had not been on retirement, but rather he had left his position. But also here, I do have the judgment here in hand with Ms. Quite a heavy one, but they also mentioned in the judgment, the full bench was quite critical, stating that the allegations that Molefe is facing that are on that state of capture report by former public protector Tumatonsela are quite serious. The allegations about the improper relations with the Gupta family, the number of calls is allegedly made there, and the number of trips. And the court found that in the wake of these allegations in that report, and these allegations have not been cleared, that it would not be proper then for a person who has these matters hanging over their head to be reinstated in that position of Eskom CEO. Now, we also spoke to Brian Molefe's attorney who was here, Barry Faber, who said, well, the judgment, they're still reading the judgment and they will decide on a way forward. He couldn't tell as of right now. Obviously, they've just had the judgment. He called it a major legal blow for them and said that they will study and find a way forward. He described Brian Molefe as a strong man, a man who still wanted to serve the country. And he says that Brian Molefe felt that, he had contributed at Eskom and that he felt that he was entitled to the monies that he had been offered, that is the 30 million. He felt that, he turned things around at Eskom. We know that he's credited a lot with the taking away load shedding. So he felt on that basis, then he's entitled to a certain amount of money from his tenure, 16 months tenure at Eskom as the CEO there. However, of course, we will find out if it's going to continue. And this ruling will also affect the Labour Court challenge that Brian Molefe launched, because he did go to the Labour Court in Johannesburg to challenge his dismissal by Minister Lynn Brown, Public Enterprises Minister, who then, after the reappointment, then later on dismissed Brian Molefe, and then he went then to the Labour Court in Johannesburg to challenge that. But then the Labour Court could not take a decision, saying that there was still a matter that is pending in this court. And of course, we now know that this court says that his reappointment was unlawful. So it will be interesting to see then how that goes forward. But as things stand, he has to pay back about 11 million rands, and we also understand that his troubles are not over, because as you played in that clip there before coming to me, Solidarity is hell-bent on making sure that those that are wrong here in this Eskom debacle matter, in terms of awarding these 30 million rand pensions to Brian Molefe, need to come to book, and that the law must take its course. He said that the Hawks had assured Solidarity that they would be investigating Mr. Brian Molefe and his alleged pension payout of 30 million, and how it came about, who was involved in that decision, calling it fraud. So it seems that a tough legal road ahead for Mr. Brian Molefe. Whether he appeals or not, we don't know at this stage. However, even if he does appeal or it doesn't, he still has to answer to those charges that Solidarity, who brought this matter to court, wants to pursue. Solidarity says that, of course, it's in the interest of justice that those that have done wrong then must pay the price and possibly do jail time for their wrongdoings.
Sipho, what are those criminal charges that Solidarity has against or wants to bring forward for Mr. Brian Molefe?
Well, so Solidarity talks about fraud. They're saying that the decision, obviously, to award Brian Molefe this 30 million pension payout is one that the court has just declared to be unlawful. So they want to know how that decision, that Eskom and all those managers and the board arrived at that decision. And you also have to consider the fact that Brian Molefe was on a 5-year fixed-term contract, meaning that he did not qualify to be part of the Eskom pension fund. However, somehow his information was sent through to the Eskom pension fund, and he was included. So how did that go about? Who gave the go-ahead for Brian Molefe to be included in the pension fund? Who misrepresented his information? Because the rules say that when one is on a fixed-term contract, they're not supposed to be part of that. And we also know that Eskom also then took a decision that even though he had served about 16 months there, that they would waive the remaining years of his contract, meaning then they were, and the fact that his wife, he just married a young wife, and so that meant that he would qualify for this 30 million rands. So payout. So there are a lot of questions to be looked at as how did they arrive at that decision, and hence they want the Hawks to investigate and put forward proper charges against Mr. Molefe himself and all those that assisted him. And they also mentioned that even though that is Solidarity who mentioned this, that even though the minister now later made a U-turn and said that, you know, she was not aware, Minister Lynn Brown, she was not aware of some of these arrangements that were made and then subsequently dismissed Brian Molefe, that she also has some questions to answer because she also played a role in this whole fiasco involving Eskom and Brian Molefe. You remember, it was a crazy few months. He resigned. Looking very teary and very emotional, saying that he's doing it for good corporate governance and that was in the best interest of Eskom. He then went to Parliament for a few months as an ANC MP, and then rumors surfaced that he was earmarked for the position of finance minister. However, that did not work out. Hence, then he tried to make a comeback at Eskom, a comeback which was obviously later overturned. So it's been quite a chaotic situation involving him, and some clarity is needed. Hence, Solidarity are hell-bent on making sure that investigations continue and that he does not just end with Mr. Brian Molefe just paying that 11 million, but also justice must be seen to have taken place in terms of making sure that those that made the wrong decisions or made allegedly fraudulent decisions to pay that 30 million rands then should be brought to book.
Very much SABC's Sipho Stuurman on the judgment there of Mr. Brian Molefe having to pay back that portion of 11 million rand already paid out.